Indonesian local authorities appeal for help from government. South Korean prosecutors seek 15-year imprisonment for former First Lady. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching World Today. I'm Sahih. Local authorities battling floods on Indonesia's island of Sumatra have appealed for more central government help as they tackle shortages of funds, food and fuel in relief efforts. Cyclone-induced floods and landslides have left 647 missing across the three provinces of West Sumatra, North Sumatra and Aceh. Electricity and roads were cut off in some areas, blocking access to aid, according to local government officials. The Central Aceh chief urged the central government to declare a national emergency as public anger grows over victims cut off from help.
Kemudian ini memang harus kita sampaikan kepada pemerintah Aceh dan pemerintah pusat bahwa ketidakmampuan kita dalam melaksanakan dan mengantisipasi keadaan yang sangat sangat mencekam dan sangat besar ini. Makanya kami pemerintah PD Jaya khususnya menyampaikan permohonan, menyampaikan pernyataan ini kepada pemerintah provinsi dan kepada pemerintah pusat untuk dibantu penanganan dan dibantu untuk pemulihan daripada pasca bencana banjir ini karena keterbatasan baik itu anggaran ataupun keterbatasan itu peralatan yang kami peroleh saat ini.
According to local media, Kompas TV, residents of Aceh, Temiang region are cleaning and drinking muddy flood water for lack of fresh water. Indonesia, which most recently declared a national emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic, has yet to designate the floods in the same category, although they affected 3.3 million, with 576,000 evacuated. When asked about declaring a national emergency, President Prabowo Subianto told reporters on Monday the situation was improving and current conditions are enough. Meanwhile, relief efforts for floods and landslides across three provinces on Sumatra Island are continuing at full speed across the affected areas. According to National Disaster Management Agency (BNPB), the death toll from floods and landslides across the three provinces has risen to 811, with 623 others still listed as missing. The BNPB stated in a press release that it had received 40 tons of relief supplies on Tuesday, coordinated by the Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs. The aid included food, drinking water and medical equipment which would be distributed to affected areas across the three provinces. The local government has installed satellite internet connection at the shelter, allowing evacuees to contact their families outside. Medical supplies, including medicines and medical services, are also ready at the shelter for residents, while more aid is being delivered by land, sea and air. French President Emmanuel Macron arrived in Beijing for a state visit to China through Friday at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. It is Macron's fourth state visit to China and a reciprocal visit to Xi's historic state visit to France last year that marked the 60th anniversary of the establishment of China-France diplomatic relations. France was the first major Western country to establish ambassador-level relations with the People's Republic of China. During the visit this week, Xi is scheduled to hold talks with Macron to jointly guide the development of China-France relations under the new circumstances. The two presidents will also have in-depth exchanges of views on major international and regional hotspot issues. Macron is accompanied by French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot, other senior officials and a delegation of business representatives. His visit to China, anticipated to hold profound significance for bilateral relationship, has garnered considerable attention from the international community. US President Donald Trump said he met with NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, noting the tech leader understands his position on export controls. Trump praised Huang after the meeting, calling him a smart man. Huang's meeting with Trump comes as the administration is considering whether to allow NVIDIA to sell its H200 chips, which are one generation behind its current flagship chips, to China. Huang was in the U.S. Capitol meeting with lawmakers where he told them that state-by-state U.S. regulations would slow the progress of AI development, which he told CNBC. NVIDIA had also opposed a separate proposed piece of legislation that would have required it to offer to sell its chips to the U.S. customers before obtaining licenses to sell those chips to countries of concern. NVIDIA had argued the bill would restrict global competition in AI markets. Later in the day, at an event hosted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, where NVIDIA is corporate donor, Huang downplayed concerns that NVIDIA chips are being smuggled in large volumes to countries where they are banned. South Korean prosecutors have sought a combined 15-year jail term for former First Lady Kim Kyun-hee, who is on trial for bribery and other charges. The case is part of a wider probe into former President Yoon Suk-yeol's brave martial law declaration last year and the scandals surrounding the former ruling couple. Kim, the wife of disgraced ex-President Yoon, was arrested in August. The Seoul Central District Court is due to deliver its verdict on 28th January. At a trial held on the first anniversary of Yoon's martial law declaration, prosecutors delivered their final arguments on Kim's charges, including stock manipulation, violating political fundraising laws by asking a power broker to carry out free opinion polling, as well as accepting bribes from the Unification Church. Kim, dressed in a black suit, apologized to the public for causing concerns. She has denied wrongdoings. Russian forces have hit eastern Ukrainian city of Sloviansk, dropping 9 aerial bombs in a single day. Regional authorities say at least 8 people were injured, including 2 children. One of the bombs hit a residential building, causing extensive damage and sending smoke rising into the night sky. Emergency crews worked through the night to clear rubble and search for survivors, as smoke rose from the shattered structure. Footage from the scene showed rescuers using flashlights and cutting through debris, while residents picked through what remained of their homes. A resident described losing his home for the second time little by little, comparing it to how he fled Armenia after the 1988 earthquake destroyed his home at the time. Governor Vadim Fleshkin on Telegram urged civilians to evacuate, warning that there were no safe places left in the Donetsk region. The attack comes amid rising tensions in eastern Ukraine, where Russian forces have intensified military operations, particularly targeting civilian infrastructure. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte announced 2/3 of NATO members have now committed resources to the alliance's prioritized Ukraine's requirement list, with contributions surpassing $4 billion. Australia and New Zealand have also joined the program, the first partners outside NATO to do so. Rutte emphasized that while progress has been made, more effort is needed. It said all members must do more and all allies need to pull their weight to ensure that full preparation and that the responsibility is fairly shared. He noted that ministers discussed plans to meet commitments made in The Hague, including investing 5% of GDP annually in defense. Turning to the peace process, Rutte welcomed continued U.S. engagement and that NATO is closely coordinating with the U.S. and other allies as negotiations move forward. NATO aims to reach funding of $5 billion for the pool year for Pearl, up from the current over $4 billion already pledged. The death toll in Hong Kong's deadliest fire in decades hit 159 on Wednesday, with police revealing that victims included an infant and a 97-year-old as they continued their search for remains in the burnt-out apartment complex. Residents forced to flee the only block of the 8 not engulfed in flames a week ago returned briefly to their homes to retrieve belongings as hundreds of others housed in temporary accommodation struggle to rebuild their lives. Meanwhile, authorities said investigators continue to uncover more bodies, some of which have been found on rooftops and stairwells, as others reduced to nothing more than ashes.
For the fire incidents here, the investigation, we are working together with other government departments, and we have a group as overseen by the Chief Secretary. So for sure that we will continue the work to make sure those criminals or those liable will be put to justice.
Of the 159 bodies found, 140 have been identified. They comprise 91 females and 49 males aged between 1 and 97 years old. Some 30 people are still missing. Police have arrested 21 suspects for manslaughter in a probe into the cause of the fire, while Hong Kong's anti-corruption body is also investigating possible graft. Up next, power restored as electrical grid reconnected in Cuba. More than 300 Venezuelan citizens returned home on Wednesday as part of the government's ongoing repatriation program for migrants, many of whom had attempted to reach the United States through Mexico. The flight, which landed at Simon Bolivar International Airport, carried 304 people, including more than 140 children, according to Venezuelan Foreign Minister Van Gil.
304 compatriotas que estaban en México, que habían solicitado su retorno voluntario y en la fortaleza de este plan creado por el presidente Nicolás Maduro Moro, presidente constitucional, nos ha permitido retornarlos de manera, no solamente de manera segura, de manera satisfactoria, de manera confortable, sino recibirlos con los brazos abiertos.
Elsewhere, witnesses said a plane from the United States carrying Venezuelan migrants also landed in Venezuela on Wednesday. The aircraft, an Eastern Airlines flight from Phoenix, was cleared to land at Marquita near Caracas, the Transport Ministry said on Tuesday after bilateral flights were briefly suspended amid heightened tensions between the two countries. Cuba said it had reconnected its electrical grid and was gradually restoring power after a partial collapse on Wednesday left its capital Havana and much of western Cuba in the dark. It was the latest incident in an energy crisis that has left millions suffering from a prolonged series of blackouts for months. Top energy officials said a main transmission line connecting Havana with the country's largest power plant in Matanzas failed around 5 a.m. local time, but that workers had restored power to approximately 40% of the capital city by midday. At least 4 western provinces, from Pinar del Rio to Mayabuki, lost power early on Wednesday, officials said, though all had been reconnected to the grid within hours of the outage. Even before Wednesday's incident, much of Cuba was already experiencing daily blackouts extending as much as 20 hours or more. Havana, once protected from the brunt of outages, now regularly faces 10 hours or more without electricity each day. Clashes between students and security forces at Senegal's main university intensified as protesters demanded stipends and other financial aids amid the government's ongoing fiscal challenges. Authorities at Sheikh Anta Diop University in the heart of the capital requested help from law enforcement to ensure safety as rock-throwing students clashed with security forces who responded with tear gas. The unrest comes as the West African nation struggles with a severe financial strain and a debt burden that the International Monetary Fund said is equal to 132% of its gross domestic product. Prime Minister Osman Sonko, an alumnus of the university, had pledged to combat unemployment, corruption and elitism. However, since he took office in April last year, alongside President Basiru Diomaye Faye, the administration has faced criticism from opposition parties for its handling of growing social and economic challenges. An audit initiated by the new administration revealed a wider than reported debt, burden and budget deficit inherited from the previous government. Talks with the IMF over a new financial program have made slow progress, and authorities are dealing with mounting public discontent and a challenging fiscal outlook. Germany became the first European nation to deploy the Arrow air defense system built to intercept intermediate-range ballistic missiles such as Russia's Oryshing, as it seeks to counter what it sees as a growing threat from Moscow. Operating at altitudes above 100 kilometers outside the Earth's atmosphere and with a range of 2,400 kilometers, the stationary Arrow system complements shorter-range air defenses such as Patriot and Iris-T, which are mounted on trucks. Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius emphasized the system value for early warning and protection of the population and infrastructure. A number of countries have expressed interest in purchasing the technology since Arrow helped thwart Iran's missile attacks on Israel in April and October 2024. The ceremony took place at an airbase in Schönwald, some 100 kilometers south of Berlin. The Inspector of the German Air Force, Holger Neumann, said the system was vital for both Germany and NATO. Germany purchased the Arrow system in 2023 for a total cost of 3.6 billion euros, equivalent to $4.18 billion as it sees Russia's intermediate-range missiles as the primary threat to its population and critical infrastructure. Sweden-based Volvo Cars has reported a slump in November sales, continuing a decline this year amid pressure from trade tariffs and subdued demand in the United States. Volvo Cars, which is a majority owned by China's Geely Holdings, said in a statement it sold 60,244 cars in November, a 10% drop from a year earlier, taking its year-to-date decline in volume to 8%. The group, which is targeting a long-term operating profit margin of more than 8% as part of a recent strategy overhaul, said sales of fully electric cars rose 4% year-on-year to account for 24% of the overall volume. Sales of electrified cars as a whole, which includes plug-in hybrids, were down 5% to account for 50% of total sales volumes. Volvo Cars did not provide a regional breakdown of demand, but said US sales remain subdued following the country's phase-out of electric vehicle tax credits. Still to come in sports, Malaysia targets 200 medals for 2025 SEA Games mission.
Sukan SEA Thailand 2025. Jangan lupa saksikannya hanya di RTM. Yahoo! Semangatnya sudah terasa. Nantikannya hanya di RTM. Penyiar Rasmi.
The Malaysian contingent has set a 200 medal target for the 2025 SEA Games in Thailand, scheduled from 9 to 20th December. Chief Division Nurul Huda Abdullah said the target was based on data derived from past and current performances of national athletes.
Based on data, on past performances and also the current performances of the teams, we have set a target of a total of 200 medals. This is a realistic number and one that we are accountable for. We hope that our athletes will stay focused and consistent during the Games and bring as many medals back for Malaysia as they can.
She made the remarks at a press conference after the Jalo Gemilang handover ceremony to the national contingent yesterday. The Ministry of Youth and Sports is maintaining the new approach of not setting medal colour targets to allow athletes to compete without added pressure. Limit the use of smartphones and stay away from negative comments throughout the Thailand 2025 SEA Games. That is the reminder from Minister of Youth and Sports Hannah Yeo to national athletes to ensure they maintain optimal focus.
Bila pergi nanti, kurangkan masa main handphone dan media sosial. Kurangkan masa baca komen-komen yang mungkin tidak memahami sukan dan keadaan yang anda ada. Pelaburan ini sia-sia kalau kita belanja berbulan-bulan latihan tetapi bila pergi sana terkesan dengan 1-2 komen. Kemungkinan itu juga fake account. Bila kerajaan telah melaksanakan sebaik yang mungkin, saya mahu atlet melakukan yang terbaik juga apabila tiba masa untuk anda melaksanakan tanggungjawab anda.
A total of 1,147 athletes will carry the nation's challenge to Thailand. This large participation is part of a long-term strategy to strengthen the country's capabilities ahead of Malaysia hosting the 2027 SEA Games. On to international football, Mikel Merino once again became Arsenal's hero. He managed to score the opening goal in their 2-0 victory over Brentford at the Emirates Stadium early this morning. Merino, who is naturally a midfielder, has now been pushed into the main striker role due to injuries to key Gunners players. Among them are Victor Gyökeres, Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus. He has now recorded 5 goals this season. Merino's goal came through a header in the 11th minute. Meanwhile, Bukayo Saka added the finishing goal towards the end of the match. The win puts Arsenal 5 points ahead of Manchester City and extends their unbeaten run to 18 matches in all competitions. Arsenal also managed to keep a clean sheet for the first time in 5 matches, despite facing defensive injury problems. Head coach Mikel Arteta opted to rest several key players on the bench to maintain fitness ahead of the congested Christmas schedule. FIFA offered a sneak peek of the 2026 World Cup draw on Wednesday, 2 days out from the star-studded affair at the Kennedy Centre hosted by Manchester United and England legend Rio Ferdinand. Friday's draw will see an unprecedented 48 nations divided up into 12 groups of 4 with American sporting icons Tom Brady, Shaquille O'Neal, Aaron Judge and Wayne Gretzky each assigned a pot to pull out the team's form. The event will also be hosted by comedian Kevin Hart, model Heidi Klum and actor Danny Ramirez with live music performances from Andrea Bocelli, Robbie Williams and Nicole Scherzinger. Confederation constraints will apply with no group having more than 1 team from the same region except UEFA, which has 16 representatives and can place up to 2 teams in a group. The tournament in the US, Mexico and Canada kicks off on 11th June with the final on 19th July next year in New Jersey. UEFA President Alexander Seferin has confirmed that Germany will host the 2029 Women's European Championship. Denmark and Sweden had submitted to a joint bid, while Poland was also in the running.
First of all, welcome also in my name at the House of European Football. We are deciding about an important tournament. Now for me it's heartbreaking that with 3 fantastic bids, only 1 can host. It was, all the presentations were great, all the bids were great, but that's how it is. 1 wins, and that's also in football the same, and I would say in life as well. So the UEFA Women's Euro 2029 will be hosted in Germany.
Italy and Portugal had withdrawn their bids before the vote, focusing on their preparations to co-host the Men's Euro 2032 and 2030 Men's World Cup respectively. Germany hosted the tournament in 2001 and as West Germany in 1989, both times winning on home soil. Final item on motorsports, McLaren and principal partner Velo unveiled the team's livery for the title-deciding Abu Dhabi Grand Prix on Wednesday. Formula One will crown its champion in Abu Dhabi on Sunday, with McLaren's Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri both seeking to dethrone Red Bull's Max Verstappen and deny the Dutchman his 5th title in a row. Norris is favourite in three-way showdown, 12 points clear of Verstappen and needing only to finish on the podium at Yas Marina, whoever wins on what could be a night of high drama.
It's beautiful because this is it's not just, you know, a normal partnership activation or anything. This is us celebrating them, celebrating the many people around the world that support us every weekend, and it's even better. Like, it's nice that we've actually had a good year to celebrate as well, you know. So this it's a double whammy.
Wednesday's event showcased a fresh fan-inspired design with Norris, Piastri and McLaren CEO Zak Brown in attendance. Norris, winner of the opener in Melbourne last March, was 34 points behind Piastri at the end of August, but turned his fortunes around with a hot streak while the Australian stalled. He won in Abu Dhabi from pole last year after losing a title battle with Verstappen.
Sukan C Thailand 2025. Semangatnya sudah terasa. Nantikannya hanya di RTM. Penyiar rasmi.
Program Rancakan Madani bersama Malaysiaku dan Konvensyen Nasional Reformasi Perkhidmatan Awam 2025 akan diadakan pada 5 hingga 7 Disember 2025 bertempat di pekarangan dataran Putrajaya, Putrajaya. Pelbagai perkhidmatan turut dibawa kepada orang awam. Orang ramai berpeluang untuk mengambil bahagian dalam pelbagai segmen interaktif yang disediakan. Termasuklah peluang kerjaya, jualan usahawan, pameran, persembahan kebudayaan, isukan dan gerai-gerai makanan untuk dinikmati seisi keluarga.
And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, Indonesian local authorities appeal for flood relief help from government. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Sahih Samsudin. Salam Malaysia Madani.